So a few days ago, I saw the most bizarre thing on YouTube on the Sean Atwood podcast. He was interviewing a woman named Anya Wick who claims to be Jeffrey Epstein's niece. And you know, it reminded me of a story I heard as a kid, The Emperor's New Clothes, where two scam artists decide to get rich by fooling a town into believing that they weave invisible cloth, a fabric so beautiful that only special people can see it. And of course, everyone wants to be special, so everyone pretended to see it, paying these two huge sums of money for gorgeous invisible gowns and outfits. Until one day, the emperor was walking down the street in such an outfit when a little kid pointed out the obvious. The emperor isn't wearing any clothes. Anya Wick's claims are so outlandish that I wasn't even going to comment because I thought that everyone could plainly see that she's unhinged. But when I read the comments, I realized that no, I was wrong, and that there's an important lesson here about narcissistic manipulation. So let's talk about her claims, why they're unhinged, and why this is a classic case of gaslighting. Now, before we begin, this episode does contain mentions of SA, child SA, drugging, and the occult. So if any of this is triggering to you, this would be a good time to jump off. I'll see you in the next vid. Anya Wick's claims on the podcast were so bizarre, I wound up going down a rabbit hole on her TikTok page, which is where she posts most of her videos, which then led me to her ex-husband's TikTok page, a man by the name of Alex Wick. We'll get into him later. So Anya Wick's first claim is that her father, lawyer Stephen Epstein, is Jeffrey Epstein's brother. But Jeffrey Epstein had one brother, Mark Epstein, most notable for his claims that there was no way that his brother took his own life. He's been very vocal about this. Further research shows that this man, Stephen B. Epstein, is most likely her father, as he's the right age, from Denver, Colorado, which corresponds with Anya's claims, and is married to a woman named Kari, which also corresponds with Anya's claims, and that he has 3 children, Noah, Anya, and Daniel. She then claims that her father runs Viacom, while his paralegals run his family law practice. But a quick Google search exposes this as a lie. In reality, Bob Bakish is the CEO. He runs Viacom. And while Viacom uses both in-house and outsourced legal teams, neither Stephen B. Epstein nor his law office appear in connection to Viacom anywhere online. Furthermore, in reality, there is no publicized connection between Stephen B. Epstein and Jeffrey Epstein, and there are no accounts that Jeffrey Epstein ever had any other sibling other than Mark. Now, before you say that Google can't be trusted, which is a sound argument for sure, realize that this also means that random content creators can't be either. That's why serious people bring receipts. Wick brings none. Her second claim is that she comes from a family of pederasts that belong to the cult of Baal and have practiced child SA as a religion for generations, and that her father, Stephen, drugged her with LSD her entire childhood so that he could SA her and also so that he could pass her around to his friends. She claims that her father forced Jeffrey Epstein, his brother, to SA her against his will when she was a child. I mean, come on. Her ex-husband, Alex, supports her claims. This is Alex.
My name is Alex Wick. I'm Anna's ex-husband. I lived with her for 11 months. And I believe her story, it follows. She's likely related to Jeffrey Epstein. Her father is likely Jeff's brother or cousin. I mean, go follow her on TikTok. She's way more reach than I do. But yeah, just stopping in here to say I believe her. I've known her really well, intimately, for a while. Her story, it adds up. It sounds crazy, but if you think about it, Jeffrey Epstein had no kids, allegedly. The guy who had a breeding ranch in New Mexico and was obsessed with eugenics has no children. That just doesn't make sense. Anyway, tell the FBI to investigate.
That sounds totally legit. Third, she claims that her great-grandfather was Walt Disney and that his real name was Arthur Becky when he came here. But by all accounts, Walt Elias Disney didn't arrive in the U.S. He was born here in Chicago in 1901 to Irish-Canadian Elias Disney and Flora Call, an American of German and English descent. Anya claims that her great-grandfather, Walt, had children with his sister, Minnie, and that's the bloodline that she's from. But in reality, Walt Disney had 3 brothers, Herbert, Raymond, and Roy, and 1 sister named Ruth. He had no sister named Minnie, nor was Minnie Ruth's nickname. A little backstory. Minnie Mouse was co-created by Disney and a man named Herb Iwerks. Her real name, if an animated mouse can even have a real name, was Minerva, and that was published in a comic strip in 1942. Minnie was her nickname. But if all that wasn't enough, fourth, she claims that she's Shia LaBeouf's twin sister and that they share the same mother, I think. I don't know, it gets kind of murky here. But she does say that the last time she saw her mother was when she was getting essayed by Larry King. I mean, the name dropping in this interview, seriously, I don't think that she left out any public figure from pop stars to heads of state. In reality, Shia LaBeouf's mother was artist Shayna Saeed, and his father was professional clown and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Craig LaBeouf. Shia is an only child. This is also well documented, and Shia LaBeouf even made a film about his childhood where he plays his own father. If you haven't seen Honey Boy, do. This interview was fascinating because it was like watching someone have a psychotic episode in real time. Honestly, you have to watch it for yourself because you won't believe it otherwise. Link below. She weaves stories so full of dialogue and details that at first this led me to believe that Anya's just suffering from severe schizophrenia and should be hospitalized immediately. And while that may be true, and probably is, by the end, I realized that she's also definitely a narcissist, fully aware that she's gaslighting anyone who will give her a platform. The most terrifying aspect of this interview for me wasn't in her ridiculous claims, or the fact that she couldn't back them up even with a tiny shred of evidence, but the public's inability to smell this BS a mile away. Netizens seem to be eating it up, arguing that of course she's saying the truth because no one sued her for defamation yet. No, she hasn't been sued because she's nuts, not because she's right. Why would anyone waste time going after her when she's clearly a disturbed lady ranting on the internet? Other netizens argue that Wick must be telling the truth because she has, quote, nothing to gain by putting this information out there, an argument that Wick has repeatedly made herself. But what most normal people don't understand is that narcissists don't gaslight for money. That's not how a narc's mind works. I made a video about the 5 types of narcs, which explains this in detail, and you can watch it by clicking above. Narcissists need a steady supply of attention and validation. This is the primary driver behind their behavior. Their ability to manipulate you is what they crave above all else. The deeper their psychopathy, the more outlandish their claims get, because the rush comes from watching you struggle against your own common sense, watching your internal conflict when they're outright lying, but also allowing room for the possibility that they're right. Watching the wheels turn in your head as you question yourself instead of them. Watching you try to reconcile what you know is a lie with your unwillingness to call them out. And the almost imperceptible, but very revealing facial tics that all of this produces. This is what narcs live for. The look on your face when you've become completely untethered from reality. So why does gaslighting work so well? Because narcs play on your fear. When you're afraid of something, you're less likely to push back even on the most outrageous claims because your prefrontal cortex can't function when your amygdala is in overdrive. Your fight or flight instinct is activated, and you're in survival mode. It's hard to take a pause and question if the threat is real when your primal neurology has already decided that it is. But there's another component to gaslighting that's even more powerful. When someone plays into your fear, it's a sort of flattery. It's like they're saying, you were right all along. You are so smart that only you can see truth that others can't. In other words, you're so special, you can see invisible cloth. This plays on your own need for validation. So even though you know what they're saying is BS, you want to believe it because that would make you better than most. This is why gaslighting can drive you bananas and cause you to question your own sanity. But you know who this doesn't work on? Anyone who is able to use discernment and rational thought to make decisions instead of relying on their emotions. These are the people who are immune to gaslighting. The only way to deal with a narcissist who's trying to gaslight you is to emphatically call it what it is, laugh, and then wave them off as you walk away. Like this. Yeah, no, that's bullshit. Seriously, that's all it takes. Narcs can't stand to be challenged, mocked, or ignored. In this simple step, you do all 3 at once. And don't waste your time getting mad or arguing. That's still validation, and they'll take it if they can't get anything else. Standing your ground while keeping your peace and sense of humor signals to them that you won't be manipulated, and they'll have to take their clown show somewhere else. To be clear, I'm not saying that child SA rings don't exist. Current events prove that they do, and the public is right to be outraged. But that doesn't mean that every accusation is true. In my opinion, Anya Wick is a fraud. She's deeply disturbed and using the public's fear and disgust to get her 15 minutes of fame, to be seen, to be validated. That's all this is. The fact that so many are falling for it is alarming. Once upon a time, society was a lot less gullible and less susceptible to these antics. But in a world where everyone's trying to get liked and followed, few are courageous enough to point out that the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. See you in the next vid.
Ready to overcome your mental blocks? Click the link below and grab your copy of Reframe It. Like and subscribe for more tips to help you level up. See you on the next vid.